this movie's not for kids. Let me just get that out of the way. What movie do you think I'm referring to? I'm referring to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Yes, a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. A movie distributed by Disney, is not made for kids. This is not a kids movie. If you're a parent who doesn't let your kids go to horror movies, whether they're R-rated, PG-13, I don't care. This movie is more than likely not for kids. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. This is a Sam Raimi movie. This isn't just an average Marvel movie. This is a Sam Raimi movie. Now, I do apologize if you hear raining in the background. There's a thunderstorm right now, so I do apologize for that. But I just watched it. Now, there's no spoilers. Don't worry. But I just watched this movie, and I'm simply left speechless. I no, look, I'll say this right now out of the gate. It's not my favorite Marvel movie by far. It is not the best Marvel movie by far, uh, and it's a movie that does have its negatives, but it's a movie I freaking love. I think this movie is even better than Spider-Man: No Way Home. I think it's better than Morbius. I know my channel, you guys know that I'm a big fan of Morbius. Um, I actually think it may be Shang-Chi level, and Shang-Chi to me is a top five favorite MCU movie. And this movie made me proud to have never doubted the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This movie does have huge implications for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Um, Now, for those who want to watch this movie, this is a review. Of course, you're wondering, should you watch this movie? Um, I've always said this. The MCU has this special thing where you can jump into any movie and get it immediately. Infinity War, I feel like you can get it even if you don't watch the other movies. Endgame, I think you could jump into that movie because they explain everything. It's character based. Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man Homecoming, Iron Man 2. I don't care what MCU movie. So far, it's felt like you don't have to know this and know this. You don't have to watch other movies. This also includes the Disney Plus series. This movie, I know there's people saying you got to go watch the first Doctor Strange, Spider-Man No Way Home. I'll say this right now. The only thing you got to watch is WandaVision. This movie does actually make you need to watch WandaVision. You don't need to watch Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, you should if you haven't seen it. But yeah, you need to watch WandaVision because WandaVision is heavily implied in this. They don't specify, they just kind of reference it a little bit, but it does seem like it's trying to tell you, you got to watch WandaVision. Um, First of all, let me talk about the best thing. Sam Raimi. A lot of times, one of the things I don't like about the MCU is that directors rarely ever get their voice. It's typically Kevin Feige tells them what to do. They gotta do what Kevin Feige says, and then the directors can use a little bit of that part that they have to make it their own film. Now, we have had times where directors do get their vision. John Favreau got that with the first Iron Man, Chloe Zhao. To me, that Eternals felt more like a Chloe Zhao movie rather than an Eternals movie, or not Eternals Marvel. You could even say the same applies to that scene in Spider-Man No Way Home where the Spidey sense is happening with all the villains around, and that's a John Watts shot. You could also say that James Gunn got a lot of creative liberty for his two not for Spider-Man, two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But this is Sam Raimi Unleashed. This is the complete package. This gave me Drag Me to Hell vibes. And there's some moments in this movie that do have that Spider-Man, the classic Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie vibe, especially a lot of the transition scenes. Now you guys know what I mean. If you've seen the Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire ones, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this movie is bonkers. I know a lot of people were complaining that there weren't enough cameos. I'm actually glad this movie didn't have too many cameos. Now, you do have to understand this movie does not have as many cameos as you may think. There's some major ones. One of them got a big pop in my theater, uh, but there's a lot. I mean, there's the cameos are kind of wild, but there's not a lot. You'd be surprised, but there's really not a lot. The trailers kind of give you a lot, but I'll say this right now: if you watch the trailers, they're very good at changing the narrative of what that film is, and nothing felt edited out. It just felt edited in a way where the story is a little different than what you expect. Um, the star of this movie, first let me just say Benedict Cumberbatch is great as Doctor Strange. He's freaking fantastic. I love Doctor Strange. Everyone did their part. Benedict Wong, who plays Wong, he did his part very well. The girl who plays America Chavez, She's great. There's actually a few scenes in the movie where she speaks Spanish, and as a Hispanic, I kind of like that because that it felt kind of like what I do with my friends that don't speak Spanish. There are moments like that. The comedy in this movie, you'd be surprised, but this movie doesn't have as much comedy as the average Marvel movie. Like, there's comedy, especially in the first 20 minutes. If you watch the first 20 minutes, you do sense the comedy. The average Marvel comedy kind of movie. But the rest of the movie, you don't feel that. You feel it flow right. You feel it flow like it needs to flow. And this movie knew what it was. It felt like it was Sam Raimi. It did not feel like they were holding back. In fact, it kind of felt like this is the line. So this is PG-13, and everything above it is R rating, but everything below is PG-13. It kind of felt like Ken Feige was like, I mean, not Ken Feige. Sam Raimi was going right over here, and then Kevin Feige was like, "Hey, I'm watching you. Don't cross that line." And Sam Raimi's like, "I'm not crossing it. I'm right there behind it." I don't know how Marvel got away with doing this, but let me tell you this right now. I'm excited for Deadpool. If they can do this with a PG-13 rating, imagine what they're going to do with Deadpool in Deadpool 3. Uh, I'm not saying that he's in the movie. I'm just saying that the gore and all this, there's so much creative liberty. I was genuinely shocked by how freely Sam Raimi was able to roam. And when I say that this movie's not made for kids, it's not. This is not a kids movie unless you're a parent who allows their kids to watch these movies. But I'll guarantee you this is gonna scare them. There was jump scares in this movie that were scary, and now this jumps into Wanda. Now, first, I'm gonna say this right now. There's a lot of deaths. There's a lot of death, a lot of it. Some deaths you don't even expect. Um, it's kind of felt like James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie, where it felt like at any moment anyone can die. Wanda, Elizabeth Olsen. First of all, this felt like a perfect continuation of WandaVision. It felt free. It felt like it was a good conclusion to WandaVision. And I'll even say this. This isn't a spoiler, but near the beginning, you kind of hear the WandaVision theme. The WandaVision, the theme. Um, the motivation for Wanda is freaking perfect. When I got out of the Joker movie back in 2019, my first thought is this is not a comedy. This isn't your average superhero movie. This is a tragedy. And this movie gave me that vibe. It gave me tragedy. This was a tragic story. This is not a fun... Like, this is something I love about this movie. This didn't feel like the average Marvel movie where you need jokes, 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 jokes. It felt... Yes, you did have a couple jokes, but it didn't... Like, the ending of this movie was just so impactful. And no spoilers, by the way. But this movie was so... There's ramifications. It felt like that story of WandaVision has concluded. I love everything they did, and I like that this movie didn't just stuff you with cameos, because one of my fears going into this was that every 5 seconds there was going to be a cameo, kind of like Crisis on Infinite Earths, where there was a cameo every 5 seconds, and all it was, hey, here, I'm Lucifer, hey, I'm Ezra Miller's Flash, hey, I'm this, hey, I'm that, and nothing special. It just felt weird. It didn't make sense. While this movie, it has its cameos, it makes sense to the overall story, but it was kind of, it made sense to the story, and it wasn't that much. It was kind of just limiting. So if you're looking forward to cameo, you're not going to get that. Instead, you're going to get this tragic story, and really this is a story about Wanda and Strange. Elizabeth Olsen, her performance was freaking fantastic. There are things that Wanda does in this movie that make you think, what the F? This is heavily based on House of M. They're not accurate with the comics, of course, which I'm glad they're not. Even though I love the comic, I want to have something unique. But they take a lot of the comics. And WandaVision under not WandaVision. Wanda, the character of the Scarlet Witch, under Sam Raimi. Yeah, it's something else. I don't think I don't want anyone else to direct Doctor Strange anymore. I want it to be Sam Raimi. And again, when I say this movie, I'm trying to be as vague as possible. When I say this movie is not for kids, it is not for kids. And if you're gonna take your kid, he's going to be scared. There's gonna be moments where he's gonna be like, like all screaming. This movie is not your average, oh yay, Marvel, save the world. There's a lot of ramifications. And one thing I gotta give it credit, Typically in movies and shows, when there's multiverse, timelines, all this, and etc., it tends to be confusing. Even Endgame was very confusing. Loki at points was confusing. This movie handled it well. They explained the multiverse. I see a lot of people saying that this movie explains too much. I'd actually say that it explains the right amount while giving you the story and keeping you on board. Also, the length. I know a lot of people were disappointed that the movie's only 2 hours short. I consider it long, but it was the perfect runtime because from right the get go, they establish what this movie is. They're establishing the story. They're establishing the conflict, and then they move on. And then they move on. Uh, and it keeps going and going and going, and you feel impact. But the the second act of this movie is probably the best act. The first act is the weakest, but it's still a good act. But the second and third act were just woof. Like, this is a horror movie. Marvel was underestimating everyone. I mean, not underestimating. They undersimplified what it meant when they said this movie is a genuine horror. This is a horror movie. This is not a comedy. This is not an action. This is a horror movie. Now let's get to America Chavez, because I didn't speak much about her. Uh, I'm not a big fan of Miss America in the comics. She's never been an interesting character. Yes, I'm happy that they got a Hispanic character and they clarified that she is Hispanic. You'll understand what I mean when you see the movie. But I like this character. I like America Chavez. She had an interesting backstory. She was a fun character. Is she like this amazing character that you want to watch spin-offs? No, but she was a great character. And this is the first time I'll say this, but America Chavez is now an interesting character to me. She was not that interesting in the comics. Now she is. There's just so, like, it's hard for me to explain. This movie was thrilling. There's a scene at the middle, and I'm being as vague as I can. If you think I'm spoiling, I'm not, but I'm being as vague. There's a scene in the middle, and you're going to know what I'm talking about. But this scene, when I watched it, the entire time my jaw was on the floor. Like, I could not believe that Marvel was doing what they were doing. It felt shocking. It felt crazy. It blew my mind because I'd never expected the Marvel Cinematic Universe to do this. Yes, we've had some gore moments, especially when John Walker kills that guy in Falcon Winter Soldier, or when Thanos gets decapitated. We've had that, but nothing like this. This is basically a horror movie. Again, this is not for kids. I'll even say this is scarier than Conjuring Part 3. And Conjuring Part 3 wasn't that scary, but it's scarier than The Nun. Remember when The Nun jump scare was this whole popular thing? That movie wasn't all that scary. It's more scary than that. This is Sam Raimi at his peak. I can see why Kevin Feige chose him. I'm shocked that Disney distributed this movie. I'm actually shocked. Like, the first thing that popped into my head during these scenes is, this is a Disney film. I don't expect that. And I don't know how they're going to sell Wanda plushies after this. You know how movies, they market, they have toys, they have Funko Pops, everything. Yeah, I don't know how you market Wanda in Disneyland anymore. I don't know how you do it. And again, like I said earlier, when I was talking about the Joker 2019, my first thought when I saw the movie was, this is a tragedy. And this movie was also a tragedy. It's insane. I love this movie. It's a top 10 best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, yes, I know Eternals was my favorite. A lot of people discredit me because of that. But this movie was great. I think it's a better movie than Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I'll admit, the cameos in Spider-Man No Way Home are much more thrilling. I won't deny it. Tobey Maguire is, of course, my childhood idol. So, of course, I'll even say this. I think this movie's better than the first Spider-Man. The first Tobey Maguire. It's nowhere near as good as the second one, because the second one to me is the greatest Marvel movie ever made. But it's better than the first one. But it's just so insane what they were able to pull off with a film like this. The visuals look great. There's literally a moment near the beginning, somewhere in Kamutage, where something happens, and I'm not going to say what it is. I'll say it for my spoiler discussion. But something happens that I'm shocked that Marvel let that happen, because it looks so creepy and scary. that even I was kind of like there wasn't a point where I was like so terrified to where I could not do anything or that I feel paralyzed. It was more that I was scared. I was like, holy crap, that was scary, but I wasn't scared per se. Um, Now let me get into like one negative I have. I only really have one negative. So in the trailers, you see there are a bunch of strange variants. You see this one with the ponytail. You see the evil one. Um, yeah, they're not. They don't do that much in the movie. Um, they don't do a lot. So that's my only negative. But the horror, I'm telling you, the horror. This genuinely felt like it was borderline R rating. I'll say this right now: the Batman is more appropriate for kids than this movie. Not, I mean, the Batman to me is still a better film, but even the Batman was a better film. I mean, a better. I mean, not, the Batman was better made for kids than this. This movie was stunning. The visuals were stunning. Everything was stunning. The only criticism I really had was this tiny one that I wish we got a little more of the Strange variants. And I also wish we had a Strange variant that didn't look like Benedict Cumberbatch. That would have been nice. The Illuminati. Now I'm not gonna say who's in the Illuminati. All you know is Mordo. I'm only gonna say Mordo. I like Mordo. I like him. I forgot the actor's name. I like Mordo. Uh, the Illuminati I thought was great to see everyone in the Illuminati. It felt like a it felt crazy. There's a scene where Strange, and you can see this in the trailer, where Strange and Chavez, they're kind of going through multiverses. I'll see if I can find it, but there's a specific, yeah, right here, where they're traveling through multiverses, and they go through multiple of them, and that I thought that was a nice. It felt very Sam Raimi-ish. It's crazy what they did with this movie. One of the complaints I see some people having is this movie wasn't as multiversal as they thought. They believed that we were going to see, oh, this character and that character. This movie is more contained. It's very self-contained, and I like that because it doesn't confuse me. It doesn't go bonkers to the point where it's just crazy. But this movie has its title, Multiverse of Madness, for a reason. There's a reason. This movie deserves that title. Uh, that's I don't know what to tell you, but that movie deserves its title. This was madness. This was chaos, but more so, this was a tragedy. This was a tragic story. The main figures are Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange and Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff. They're the two centerpieces of the story. America Chavez plays a big part, not the major part, but big part. Wong is really funny. I feel like he doesn't do that much in this movie, but he's great in this movie. I loved him as always. It was just great. In fact, I'm actually struggling because the first Doctor Strange movie to me is a top 10 best MCU movie too. I'm struggling which one I prefer more. But yeah, it's. I don't know where to put this, but I know definitely it's a top 10 best MCU movie. I was surprised. I was shocked. Now, I do want to tell people there are two post credits. Not going to tell you what it is. The first post credit it has ramifications for the future of the MCU, and the second post credit is more kind of a little joke that they had near the beginning of the movie. Let's also talk about the broader MCU. There's something that happens in this movie that, really implies future MCU. It's crazy, It doesn't like change the MCU, but it changes the Doctor Strange side of the MCU. Also, one thing I like about this movie is they kind of show you what it's like to be a hero with powers. They kind of like they show how Doctor Strange is just recognized. Everyone's aware of him. Everyone knows that he fought Thanos. All that. I like that. And you also get references from Infinity War, Endgame, all that. But this movie was great. Now, Matt Ramos, the guy who soups, the guy with the trailer reactions, he said one thing in his review. He said in his review that the ending is going to be very controversial. It's going to be very divisive. There are going to be people who hate this ending. There are going to be people who like this ending. I personally thought it was a perfect ending. I think this ending was incredibly perfect. I do think there are going to be people who don't like it, but I didn't see it as divisive as Matt Ramos said. This movie's not that the ending didn't feel divisive. It felt perfect. It felt like it was the conclusion that made most sense for the story. And I'm glad they did it. And even the way the movie ends is actually very horrifying. The way the movie ends, I love that. I love the way it ends. It felt very horror. You're gonna understand what I mean, but it felt very horror. There's jump scares in this movie. and it's just insane. Now, I'm trying to be vague because this movie, the trailers didn't really show you a lot. I mean, they show you a lot, like the cameos and all that, but they don't show you too much, you know. But this movie was the multiverse of madness. This movie was insane. It was crazy. Uh, and yeah, the post credits weren't anything special. The first one does have again huge ramifications for the future of Doctor Strange, but other than that, it didn't do anything major. I wasn't like, oh, but there are moments in this movie that do make you go, oh, like some cameos. Uh, like my theater was, you could hear someone like, and you hear a little bit of cheering when someone appeared in the movie. But the major thing was this movie was a horror movie. I'm trying. I know everyone's probably gonna say, "Oh, is it really a horror movie? This is a Marvel film. This is distributed by Disney. How could it be a horror movie? Is it really? The trailers don't really imply that." I'm telling you right now. I don't know how to explain it, but this is a horror movie. This is a horror movie. If you're somebody who's a parent and you do not take your kids to horror movies, you're probably not going to sit little Billy out. Little Billy is probably not going to want to watch this movie because it's going to scare him. He's going to have nightmares. He's probably not going to be able to sleep for the next week. So probably don't take little Billy to the movie. Unless, I mean, of course, I'm not a parent. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that I probably wouldn't. And, oh my God, it's crazy. But you do have to watch WandaVision. And if you're a big Wanda fan, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, if you're a Strange fan, especially a comic book Doctor Strange fan, you're gonna love this movie. If you're a horror fan, you're gonna love this movie. I see why because the critics have been a little bit divisive. Now, most people love this movie so far, but I can see the audience is gonna be a little bit split. I think there's gonna be some audience members who are used to the MCU formula. But that's it for my review. Thank you guys for watching this review. If you like the review, please let us know in the comment sections. What do you think? If you've seen the movie or not, whatever it is, please let us know in the comment sections. Please don't spoil in the comments, please. We'll do a live spoiler discussion next Thursday, possibly. Maybe Monday, but that depends. But yeah, next Thursday we're going to have a spoiler discussion. But this was the Multiverse of Madness. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, I love this movie. It's amazing. It's I don't even know. I think I may like. I maybe it's not as good as Shang-Chi, but it might be in that level. And to me, Shang-Chi is a top 5 best MCU movie, but it's definitely in my top 10. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Um, Let me just say I'm so proud of the Phase 4, or not Phase 4, the next saga of Marvel. Everyone said after the Infinity Saga they were gonna be done over with. And look, I won't lie to you. Black Widow to me was not all that good. I thought it was all right. WandaVision was a perfect start, by the way. But I'm talking about the movie side. The movies have been great. Shang-Chi was a top 5 best MCU movie. I loved it. Eternals to me is the greatest movie the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever produced. And Spider-Man No Way Home was, of course, a joy, a blast. And this movie is another example of why I'm so excited of this saga, because they're unleashing their potential. They're not holding the seatbelt anymore. They're unlocked. They're unloaded. They're basically going to war. They're doing whatever they want to do now. They don't care. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. Peace.